Voltron Network.
Welcome back to Bonus Talking at the Movies. This is original versus remake. I'm Eddie Antonio.
And I'm Mo.
Let me get the right side. I'm not used to this mirror side. I actually flipped my video around. So I was noticing that whenever I pointed to you in the videos, I was actually pointing in one direction because the image was mirrored. So I didn't realize that. So people pointing it out, saying, what's wrong with you? Why you keep pointing to the other side of the room? But yeah, we got it right this time. So this week, we've got some classics here, or one classic, and some people are pretty fond of the remake. This is Dawn of the Dead, a seminal zombie movie. How familiar were you with the original Dawn of the Dead, George A. Romero?
So this should come as no surprise to you, Eddie, knowing what I normally say about classic films. But I've never seen Dawn. But I have heard a lot about it over the years. In fact, I remember many, many years ago, this must be going back to last decade, I remember even owning a copy of this that I got free that I never really got round to watching.
Wow.
But having read a little bit about this after watching the film, I didn't realize there's like a whole series of them. And even though John Romero's now passed away, his son is now working on like the next installment.
It's insane. This is, I'm sure, I haven't gone into his IMDb, his specific IMDb, but I'm sure he's got one or two other little things. But pretty much his entire career, he's been making this series of movies, these zombie movies. Just whenever he can get a budget together to scrape together to make a movie, he makes one of these movies. It's ridiculous.
It's so weird, really, isn't it? Because if you think about the cult following that this particular film has, that he then had to like still scrape money together to be able to make films, it's just ridiculous. Unless he just really didn't want like the studio system.
I'm pretty sure he would have. Like, I'm pretty sure that he would have preferred to be the one to make that newer version of Dawn of the Dead with the budget that Zack Snyder had. But no, I think Romero was always working on movies that were like 5-10 million, if that. Yeah. I think the last big one he had was Land of the Dead, which we're going to get to. But I thought Land of the Dead, in my weird CTE riddled memory, was the Zack Snyder movie. So I was sitting there watching the 2004 Dawn of the Dead, and I'm thinking, I don't remember this. I've always...
Have you never seen the Snyder version?
I realized I hadn't seen this.
Oh, right. I've seen that before.
I was mistaking it for George A. Romero's movie, which came out, I think, the year after this. Came out after 2005.
Oh, right. So you thought the Snyder movie was the original George Romero Dawn of the Dead?
No, not the original. Romero made another zombie movie a year after, in 2005, called Land of the Dead. Yeah. And that's what I thought the Snyder one was. So I'd mixed them up.
Right.
That one. Because in that one, they're holed up in an office building, Die Hard style.
Yeah.
With all these like rich people living there. And it's also the movie which has smart zombies. The zombies start to evolve.
Yeah, so there's also one apparently in the mid-'80s where they learn how to use guns and stuff.
Yeah. That's what happens in this one, Yeah. Crazy. So anyway, let's start with this. 1978. Let's do it. Dawn of the Dead.
Dawn of the Dead. Do you want to give your take on this first then?
Well, I had seen this. This is the second movie in the series after Night of the Living Dead.
Yep.
I believe it was. Black and white movie. And what I do like about this is that back in these times, I haven't seen all of his other zombie movies, but back in these times, Romero was always trying to make movies which had a deeper message than just being a zombie movie.
Yeah.
And apparently this one was about consumerism. So that's why people hauled up in the mall. This is like the first time the archetype of people stuck in a mall for safety has ever been done.
Well, so there was something even really interesting about that in there, because the first time our heroes see the mall, right? One of them goes, "What is this?" And the other one goes, "This is one of those new like indoor malls." And I was like, wow. Well, I know that would have been a new concept for UK, but I just assumed in the States, those have been around since like the 50s or the 60s or something.
You would have thought so, but guess not. It was all just mom and pop shops up to that point.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is the whole trope that has been copied infinite times in TV shows with zombies, in computer games with zombies. Yeah, people being the best place to be in a mall if you can lock it down. Legit.
And you know what? It's not a bad idea, because literally, if you can lock it down and you can go shop by shop, level by level, and clean the place out,
Yeah.
it's actually not a bad place. You've got all the supplies you could want. There's probably months worth of food in those like
That's
industrial
it.
freezers.
If the
Got their
power's
own
still on,
generators.
that's
Yeah,
it. Power's still on.
yeah.
Each different store probably has its own freezer, so you don't have to worry about running out of
There you
space for
go.
that.
You got a ton of bathrooms to use in that place.
Oh, I've thought about this even when I used to
Yeah,
work in a Macros, a place, a wholesale cash and carry, massive place.
yeah.
Even then, I would think if something ever happened, that's the first place I'm going, and I'm locking myself in because just everything's there. It's just heaven, really, when you think about it. Love it. But what I was saying, so George Romero felt that Dawn of the Dead was about consumerism. The reason why these zombies are congregating at the mall wasn't just to get the people that were living there. It was just because of this. There were zombies to shopping and spending money, and just because they weren't really.
Yeah. And the fact that they mentioned that many times in the film indirectly, right? This must be important to them. They must have a memory of it, or words to those effects.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Love
I
it.
did read something very fascinating that someone quoted. They go, for a film that's based, or the message is supposed to be about consumerism and greed, I guess. They go, they are absolutely stunned by the amount of limited re-release editions the disc has had at like extortionate prices. And again, this October, they are doing like a 6-disc release with like the soundtracks and every cut of the film, all in like 4K restored.
Yeah, there's another version of this. I saw the 2-hour version. There's another one which is almost I think almost an hour longer, or like 40 minutes more. Like, what the fuck is on that?
So there are 3 cuts. So there's the regular cut, which we watched. There's the director's cut, I guess, and then there's the I might be getting the word wrong, but the Argentino cut, which is like an Italian, not Italian version, but I'm guessing there's like how Italian horror is this huge thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's got something to do with that. I didn't actually have time to look into that.
Yeah, another thing that George always slips into his movies, he always has some race subject matter. Like, if you've never seen Night of the Living Dead, part of that, the big kicker in that is that the one black guy in the group is the one guy to survive. And they're all held up in a farm, I believe. And right at the very end, he survived all the zombies, he survived all the infighting, everyone turned on each other, and he leaves the farm. And to think that he's being rescued and the police shoot him, thinking that he's
that one, bloody hell!
Yeah.
How relevant is that still?
Exactly. So I kept thinking, is that going to happen in this one as well? Because it's been so long since I'd seen this, so I was half thinking that was going to happen to Ken Foree. Familiar face, has a unique look.
Did you notice his cameo in Zack Snyder's one? Yeah.
There was a couple of cameos in Snyder's one. Tom Savini was up in there. The leader of that gang of bikers, he was up in there.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
And Scott, I didn't actually see this guy, but you know the guy who died? Peter, the other police or soldier. They were riot squad guys.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he also was in it, but I don't remember where.
Right, okay.
But yeah. Anyway, so Mo, what did you think for someone who's never seen this?
So for somebody who's never seen it, who's not really into horror films, and the fact that it was a 70s film, I was kind of blown away by the whole experience, to be honest. And I can understand why it's so highly regarded. It pulls no punches. It just gets straight in there. There's no long setup. You're like in the midst of things.
Like those guys raiding that apartment building.
Yeah.
The police officers, and there's that one guy who's just blatantly a racist, saying he hates all the Mexicans and the black guys, and he just goes crazy wanting to shoot everybody.
Just typical cop, really, from what we're seeing at the moment. But yeah, I mean, one thing I did notice that I really liked after having watched the Snyder version was I thought the characters in this particular version were just so much more smarter.
I know.
Than the remake.
I was holding back from getting into that with the Snyder one. But for a movie which everyone has always said was, this is the one good Snyder movie he's made.
Yeah.
I was watching that thinking, I don't like this. Everyone is too stupid. They're too stupid that it makes me angry watching it.
I'll get to that in a minute. So, so these guys actually did like real world things that you would do, right? You would get like the trucks and you would block the entrances and stuff like that. And I like the fact that towards the end of the film, it was actually, again, other humans that ruined their hideout, their paradise,
Yeah.
and not themselves, right? And not the actual zombies, not the external factor. But the whole film was just absolutely superb. It was like the right sort of length. It was just tense enough to keep you on the edge of your seat. I like the way that they kind of, systematically work their way through them all to get rid of the zombies, like get supplies. It was almost like a video game,
Yes,
right? Get
exactly.
to the store, get some supplies, distract the zombies,
Yep,
kind of
yep.
thing.
Establish the food,
Yeah,
bring it to you.
uh,
Like you find a little
yeah.
place where they're living. Love it.
And what I thought was really smart, absolutely that bit, they didn't spread out to the mall, right? They essentially cordoned off a little bit for themselves, and they even
Yeah,
tried to hide the entrance
yeah.
by
Built a
saying,
little fake wall.
in case looters come along, they'll never know that they're even there, which
So
is
much
just so
smarter.
smart, so
So
smart.
much smarter. Like
Yeah.
that is the way to live. That's the way to do it.
Yeah, and they even made that little area quite nice. They've got TV, sofa, carpeting,
Yeah,
everything in
had
there.
like a little
Yeah,
spice rack on the wall so they can just reach over
yeah,
and plug in. Love it, man.
yeah. But they obviously were succumbing to the fact that there were only three of them. And I can imagine, like, after months and months and months, especially in the 70s, right, where literally you've only got each other for company, there's no TV, there's probably no concept of like VHS
Hmm.
tapes that you could go into the
Well,
store and get.
did start out to be four of them, unless you're not including the woman.
Yeah.
Sexist. But
Was it four? Well, okay, but eventually, like one of them dies, right? So half
yeah.
the film is there is only three of them, right?
And I
So at one
like
point,
how they did that scene compared to the other one, which we'll get to. I like how they did it where he was slowly slipping. And
yeah,
then when he finally did, his friend was just sitting there waiting. And you
yeah,
could see him just pull as he slowly sat up and just pulled the sheets down. And actually had real creepy. You actually felt for it because you
yeah,
spent time with this guy, getting to know him. So you actually
absolutely,
felt
yeah,
for
yeah.
him when he finally turned.
Yeah, and obviously, I think his other mate who was keeping an eye on him obviously knew what was about to happen,
Yes.
and he he got time to sit there and contemplate what he was going to do and what was about to happen, and they didn't really need to spell it out or have any dialogue that actually talks you through that.
Yeah, it wasn't as idiotic as people hiding that they were being bitten or hiding that someone was sick or people just turning rotting in front of them and thinking, what's
Yeah.
wrong with this guy? I can't with him.
Oh
Ah.
yeah, yeah. Well, I guess we'll get to that in a minute. But yeah, there was quite a bit of that in the Snyder version.
But apparently,
I actually really like this. I'm actually almost tempted to think I need to pick the 4K up of this when it comes out.
I'd like to know what that looks like.
Yeah,
That would actually
yeah.
look real nice.
Hmm.
I wonder if they'll ever do like the full series. They probably spread out the rights to too many different studios to be able to do that. But
Yeah, it always seems to be Dawn of the Dead that seems to be spoken about. People don't generally tend to speak about
true.
the other ones.
It's like the completionist in you. It's like
Yeah,
with James
yeah,
Bond. All those films aren't good. Not all of
yeah.
them. But there is something to be said that have that massive box set where the spine has 007 written
Yeah.
out. It would be kind of cool at the same time.
Is that a challenge, Eddie? Are we going to watch and rate all the James Bond films?
One day. One day. Not yet, but one day.
Right. So the Dawn of the Dead remake, 2004 was that?
2004. Zack Snyder directed. Written by James Gunn, which surprised me.
Yeah, I noticed that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You start, Mo, because
Right. Okay.
mm,
So this is one of the few Zack Snyder films that I actually quite liked. And revisiting it after many years, I think the first time I saw it was on like Sky Movies, like last decade or something, back in like '05 or '06. And I gotta say, it with a bigger budget, the film still kind of holds up really well. It is pretty much a different story, right? The fact that it's set in
very
a
different.
mall, it's a completely different film, right? The
Very
zombies
different.
are totally different, but they're very, very inconsistent with what the zombies can do.
Well, you can argue that these aren't even zombies. That's the problem with, I guess, true. I get they're out there more people who are fanatics about zombies. They don't
Right.
consider this movie and
Yeah.
also the 28 Days Later series
Right.
and what was the other one? The World War Z. Anywhere where there's like running zombies, where people are
Yeah.
running, they don't consider
Yep.
those zombies. They're just
Those.
infected. It's like
Right. Okay.
this is more like a biological horror.
But isn't the actual term of a zombie? It's just somebody walking around in a mindless state, doing everything that everyone else is
Walking
doing.
undead. I think they said it
Yeah,
undead. I think
yeah,
that's we're serious. Yeah, the slow
yeah,
walking. So I think Zach just kind of went for the more
yeah.
exciting people being chased.
Well, which is good, right? Because essentially, like, there's no point in just doing a remake and making it exactly the same. And to be honest, if they'd really capitalize on that, those would be terrifying zombies, right? Because if you look at the original one, when the looters come in, they're almost partying with those zombies.
Yeah,
Whereas in this one, they're fucking terrifying, right? You wouldn't want to really go up against them.
it's true, but there is something about that slow, steady wave that when people
Yeah,
get caught, it's just because the mass. There's just so
yeah,
much of
yeah,
it that you just can't escape it.
yeah,
There's
yeah, yeah.
something about that I kind of like.
Yeah, but in this one, they were very inconsistent with what a zombie could do. So in the very opening scenes, you see the main girl's boyfriend, right? He breaks through a wooden door,
And
like
he
like
changes
it's
like
not there.
that. He
Yeah, yeah.
changed like that. One bite. Where did that kid come from?
I'm assuming either, well, the front door was open, right? So I'm assuming somebody had broken into the house. Because when she goes out the bathroom, she goes around the front and gets into her car. You can blatantly see the front door to the house is open.
So are we to presume then that that girl was the neighbor girl that she said hi to when she drove into her house from the hospital at the beginning?
I thought it was their daughter or
A roller
something.
skating. But they never referred, she never, when
No,
this film
but when
started.
the guy is talking to her, he's not surprised. He's not like, "What are you doing in my house?"
But they never established any
No.
kids. Like she got home from work, went
Yeah.
straight to the bedroom, and they
Didn't
just
worry
went
about
straight,
it.
they went straight to fucking in the shower. No hi to any kids. There was,
Yeah, because maybe it was Dad's turn to take care of dinner for the kid and make sure she's in bed.
and the woman just
Mum,
ignores,
Mum doesn't want to know because she's been at work since 6 o'clock in the morning.
doesn't care. She just wants to get laid. Doesn't want to say hi to her daughter. That got me.
And
But
then,
like
and
that, he
then,
changed.
yeah. Well, I mean, she did take off. She did literally rip out like a whole chunk of like his neck, right? And I'm assuming that probably killed him quite instantly.
I guess.
Yeah. But then later on, you see the zombies like congregating around the mall, right? And the only thing between them and the other side is just a pane of glass, maybe
Oh,
two
yeah.
panes of glass. They should have been able to easily break through that.
Through that. That's why I kept thinking, where are the shutters? Every shopping anywhere is the metal shutters. Why weren't they
Absolutely. There? Or just so that's like I said, so inconsistent.
Yeah.
And they may have spoken about it, but they never actually got round to like barricading those doors with anything.
I know. Just terrible planning. Like
Terrible,
who was in charge?
Planning. Yeah.
It shouldn't have even been able to get in the first place.
Well, I mean, the one thing that they did establish really well was the fact that it was really early morning, hence why the mall was still on lockdown.
Yeah,
and they did get in because they broke into it. They didn't just walk into it.
Did you buy the relationship between Mekhi Phifer and the Russian chick, Luda? Like this guy who is being presented as because the way that they presented the character, the way he talked, the way he dressed, it made it seem like he was some from like Compton, LA street guy.
Yeah.
And then she's this Russian, tall, I guess, model type. Where do the universes where these two get together and they're believable, have kids? It just didn't seem like a believable couple to me.
Well, you don't have to plan to have a kid, right? It could be an accidental thing as well.
They just don't seem to be characters that should mesh. It ain't nothing to do with race, guys. It's just they just don't seem personality types to mesh. It could be the same if he was like a farmer from the South and she's a Russian model. It's just like, how did they meet? How did they seduce?
Well, he's obviously a gangster and she's obviously attracted to like dangerous men. I don't know what's difficult about that to believe.
But from Russia to they just didn't make no sense. And but him being dumb. Yeah. Did no one want to look for? She'd been missing for presumably a day or two. Did no one want to check up on the pregnant woman?
You would think under those circumstances, and the fact that there is a nurse there, he might want to say to her, "She's pregnant, but she has been bit, and things aren't going right here."
Yeah, but him being dumb and not wanting to admit it, but just the nurse on her own, would she not want to check in on the pregnant woman? Not not ask permission, just go.
Yeah, that is true, actually. I know there are other, they had a much bigger party, but you're absolutely right. A nurse would probably want to check in on a pregnant woman.
So mad. So mad. So infuriating. And the fact that the nurse as well, this nurse character who had just lost her husband at the very beginning of the movie, who we saw had a beautiful relationship with a guy.
Yeah.
Lovey-dovey, kissing, making love in the shower.
Yeah. Yeah.
How long are they in that mall for?
They were there for months by the looks of things.
Months, you reckon?
Yeah. I've had a good few months.
That wasn't... No, because the woman was pregnant. She was already heavily pregnant right at the beginning when they got into the mall. Right.
Yeah, but like some people don't even show, right? So you just want showing a lot.
No, she was heavily pregnant, so it couldn't be more than 1 month.
But so you're essentially saying, how did this woman then suddenly start having feelings for somebody she was around? But think about it. They are in a life and death situation, right? The whole world has just crumbled around them. She's probably found somebody that's in their little group that's kind of sane, kind of normal, and is a pillar of strength. I can buy that.
Let me see her mourn. She never mourned for him at all. I hate that in films. People die and they just... Nah.
But do you want them to, like, how much of the running time of a 2-hour flick do you want them to slow down and start mourning? Because I can imagine what people will be saying. People will be saying, like, man, that 10 minutes where that chick just spent mourning for a dead boyfriend.
You don't got to spend 10 minutes. It's just a line, say, I miss my husband, or looking at her wedding ring. Something, little thing to show she gives a shit.
It could be on the cutting room floor for all we know.
Man, I don't know, man. I don't know.
But I mean, it looks wise, it still stands up really well, right? I mean, that had a budget of like 26 mil, and it made back 102 mil, from what I understand.
28.
So, and that was his like directorial debut as well.
And very un-Snyder-like though. It's not like any of his other films visually. It looks good, but it doesn't have that heavy saturation, hypercolor palette, doled out color palette that he usually has. This is very just straight up, straightforward.
Well, it's like his first film, right? He's still finding his feet, finding what he can do, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. But he did a pretty good job considering.
I will say this is not a bad film. Apart from the fact that the characters themselves are quite silly and do a lot of silly things, especially when they go down into the basement to do the electrical stuff. They literally like break the only door between themselves and the outside world, or the basement. And you're kind of thinking, surely there's a better way to do this.
When they did that, and they needed to find where the generator was, so they needed security guards to tell them, why did they need both security guards? Surely it makes sense to bring one and leave the other one in, instead of bringing them both so that one can get killed.
Yeah. Well, I guess the more people you go with, the more likely you can use them for cannon fodder, right?
Or the more likely they can turn on you because you're keeping them prisoner and they're going to take your gun.
Well, and that storyline went nowhere, right? Because he literally went from being a prisoner to being like a model citizen in that group.
Went from, I'm not going to die for you people, to him literally dying for them without really building anywhere in between that there's some relationship there.
Yeah. Which one of these films would you recommend to like somebody who's never seen either? Like let's say Salem, right? If you had to say Salem, watch one of these two films.
See, when you first said it, I would say you have to watch the original, just for context of where this whole zombie craze really began. Even though it's not the first zombie movie, it's kind of the big one that started the craze of it. But you say recommend to Salem would not want to sit through that original 70s one. So you go for But you know what? Like, from a production point of view, even though it's a low budget film, I thought the effects still look pretty okay. Obviously, you can tell they're like, you know, it is literally makeup, but like for the time, it's absolutely fine. I thought the production values were absolutely fine. At the beginning, when they were in the housing apartment, the police are raiding that place, and we first see zombies. Yeah, and they all turn on that woman, start biting into her arm. It actually, it looks so good when they're biting out chumps. It actually looked kind of tasty, like, ooh, what is this like? Just the texture when they were biting, whatever the effects they were using, it just looked, look at that, a chocolate. I love that. Let me have a taste. Maybe being zombie ain't so bad. I would still probably try and recommend the original to people. I think that is definitely the superior film. Did you get pissed when the girl basically ruined their entire plan and preparation for escaping for the fucking dog?
being a pet owner, I could probably understand understand the pressure she was under.
You would take that one truck that they were relying on, and it ended up, when they went to rescue her, they ended up getting one of them killed. The guy with the fucked up leg.
Oh yeah. I mean, it all went horribly, horribly wrong. I would have thought there's probably a better. I didn't understand why they couldn't climb on top of the truck, get into the cabin, and then drive across.
I know, especially, and her actions didn't make sense considering they established literally 2 minutes before that zombies don't care about animals, that they won't attack a dog. So the dog is perfectly safe.
There is that. But then I guess the dog is there trapped with a zombie, right? Inside of there. So we don't know whether the zombie would eventually turn on the dog, or the fact that the dog is just scared and by itself.
But she didn't know the guy inside had been turned into a zombie, though. That's why they were on the radio to her about.
Yeah.
She just this is the idiot. This is the freaking idiot.
Well, although having said that, they were going to have to make that trip over there, right? Because that place had all the ammo. At
least they could have done it planned, nice and slowly. Didn't have to rush like
that. Yeah. These guys literally did like a half-assed job with everything.
Yeah, it's
Although, you know what I really found amusing was they went all the way over there, and then they were like, right, carry as much ammo as you can. And none of them, I think one of them had a bag. None of them had like rucksacks or bags or anything that they could have just strapped to themselves.
And they all just came from a mall, which would have had infinite amount of all of those things. Wow. I'm actually surprised there wasn't a gun shop in the mall, considering... But maybe there is some law against that in America. I'm not sure.
No, because normally those sporting goods stores, which is the first shop you see, they normally have like a gun section.
Like a rifle or something, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Dude, when they're in those little tank things they built, those two trucks, the old guy who just has the chainsaw and just decides to just stand there.
Mate, I tell you what, that must have been the first time in any movie that I can remember where I literally, when he did what he did, I actually went like... It's just the fucking standing there
in the car truck
with it, like, actually, like, don't turn it off or anything, just keep...
Boom, and
that scene could be used as like a public service announcement type video, right? Don't power a chainsaw.
It's ridiculous. And those two characters were probably the least developed. They did nothing for those two characters except revealing that guy was gay. But that was it. They had no conversations with people, not really. Yeah. No gauge of their characters. No. You think there were too many people in this compared to the first one? I
did like the fact that there were more people, right? Because you essentially get more of a community kind of going. So you get like more people to riff off. They don't really make much of it because I don't think they really did anything with that. But it didn't annoy me. I actually kind of like that. It just made it different from the original film. I actually did not feel like I watched the same film 2 nights in a row.
There was, besides the mall and the name, that was it. That's the only common thread between the two. They're completely different movies. Completely different.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was quite enjoyable. Like when we did the last one, the Nikita, I felt like I literally watched the same film twice.
Pretty much. How did they find the boat so quick?
That whole bit was fucked up as well because you're kind of like, why ram through the gate? Why not like
stop,
open the gate, go for it, close the gate.
You take your time and just look at God knows how many boats were there. It was a boatyard. There were boats everywhere. And they went straight to the one boat which they've never seen before. The guy whose boat it was dead. Dude from one family.
And knew it. And knew that was his boat. I think these are just like little Snyderisms. Like I don't really care about that. I just want the action to look cool.
It's crazy.
Yeah. And the guy then who gets bit, you're kind of thinking, why wasn't he the one that stayed behind to fight everybody off? Like he basically got out the van pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah. If he knew he was going to die, surely he should have been like, I'm going to die anyway.
Yeah. That is true. I didn't even think of that. Yeah. So that guy, the security guard guy, who'd had his little arc, became a good guy, died for nothing.
Exactly, yeah.
And he had time to run, because he was literally saying, come. It's like, no, I'll catch up to you. You got space.
Yeah.
Ah.
I did like the end credits as well. I did like the fact that they kind of literally, like, it wasn't just sail off into the sunset
Yeah.
like in the original film where they basically go into the helicopter and that's the end of that story.
Happy ending. Nope.
Yeah.
It shows that they get to an island and that island is infested and camera
Yeah.
drops and we presume they're all dead.
Oh, I tell you one thing that did annoy me about the original film, the ending actually. So there's obviously the final two survivors.
Yeah.
So you've got
Pregnant woman.
the pregnant woman and black guy, right? And he decides that he's had enough.
Yeah.
And he's not going, and you're kind of like, "Are you fucking mental? What is about?" So he goes into his own little room, and he pulls out the gun, and you think, "Oh right, okay, he's had enough. He wants to kill himself. Fair enough." I can kind of understand that. I wouldn't want to do that, but I can understand he thinks there's nothing left to live for.
And then he goes, the Captain America music suddenly kicks in, or this weird sort of superhero music, and he just starts deciding he's got something to live for all of a sudden.
Yeah, it's just mad, and he's like literally telling a pregnant woman, like, go off on your own now.
I know. But it felt so out of place though, that music. Actually, G.I. Joe, that was the music type. It's like G.I. Joe music.
Yeah, exactly. It just changed. Like, if she had died, I could then kind of see why he might want to do that. There is literally nothing left to live for.
Yeah. Did you ever hear about the original ending, which was partially filmed or entirely filmed, but got cut and is presumed lost?
What happened?
Well, apparently everyone dies. And the woman was the last to survive. And when she sees that the black guy dies, he stays in the room and we're presuming that he doesn't get out. He doesn't decide to live. She gets to the roof, starts a helicopter, sees all the zombies, and then she just gives up. So she stands out on the little platform on the helicopter and then stands up. Yeah. And choppers chop her head off.
Oh.
The blades. Yeah.
Oh, actually, that would have been an interesting end.
He just
gives
gives up.
Depressing as fuck.
Yeah. But I guess they decided too bleak. I think it was that George Romero decided that he'd fallen in love with the characters and decided he wanted at least two of them to survive in the end.
But then you never see those characters again, right? Because all the films are all different characters, different right?
Yeah. Do you know that the 2004 one, had a planned sequel?
Oh, did it?
Called Army of the Dead.
I actually did go to Google it to find out whether there was a sequel or anything.
Script was written. Co-written by Snyder and a few other people. He wasn't going to direct it. Some other guy was going to do it. They had the guy ready to name. It was being greenlit. And for whatever reason, it didn't end up going ahead. This is when he made Watchmen. But 2019, Netflix slid in. They heard that there was that sequel script floating around.
Yep.
And now it's been shot last year by Snyder, and Army of the Dead will be out this year.
Right, so that is directly in the same universe then, because that is supposed to be like a heist movie in Vegas, right? Yeah.
But it doesn't have any of it does it the Romero way in that it's different characters. But this is going to be a sequel.
Oh, so
it's out this year, which is a bit of a coincidence that we're doing this now, which is all right.
Yeah. I will look forward to that then. Or have you got any plans to seek out the other Dead films in the George Romero saga?
Ooh, I don't know, because I did go back and watch the trailer for Land of the Dead, the one which I thought was the Snyder one, and watching it again with Dennis Hopper and a bunch of other people, I was thinking, oh, this looks a bit rough. Yeah. But I do remember enjoying it when I saw it, so maybe it's worth finding a few of them. But there's so many, though. I don't know if that's even possible.
Is there like 6 of them or something?
If just that, I'm sure there's more. I'm sure there's more. But what do you rate this overall, Mo?
So Dawn of the Dead itself, I think, is
78.
78. I'm not a huge horror fan, right? And I'm not entirely sure how many times I would watch this again and again. But I would say it's a really good film. Maybe not quite a 4, but definitely say a 3.5 or 3.75.
If it was just a movie on its own, I'd probably give it a 3.5. But because it's and the iconography of it all, being that it starts this whole movement, gives it an extra half star for me. So I'm gonna give it a solid 4 stars.
4 stars. Right.
Dawn of the Dead, 1978. Yeah.
What do you give the remake?
I give it 3 because just the frustration of the idiot. We haven't even talked about the zombie baby. Like, what was this guy's plan when she did finally turn into a zombie? That he had this pregnant woman strapped to the bed, and she still gives birth somehow. That whole shootout with the old woman.
He's like, you're trying to take my family away from me, bang.
Yeah, but he waits for her to shoot because it doesn't like she's taking her time. Like it was a sudden shot. She aimed, and he could have shot her long before she shot the woman in the head.
Yeah,
and then they just shot. And then the zombie baby gets killed, and dude, it's ridiculous. Yeah, 3 stars. So what do you think?
Yeah, I think it is definitely a rock solid 3, right? It's a really good, entertaining film that is just highly flawed.
Ridiculously flawed.
Yeah.
Ridiculously. But guys, what do you think? Are we wrong? Is Snyder's the superior version? A lot of people feel like it's like a hidden classic or a slept-on classic. Nah, I don't know. I was frustrated. But let us know, right? Comments down below. Give us a like, subscribe, all of that. If you're listening on audio, give us 5 stars on YouTube. On bloody iTunes.
Yeah.
So yeah, guys, from Eddie Moe.
And from Eddie Moe.
See you later.